So what really happened was in the 1905s and between 1905 and 1910, really Russia. Well, it was really 1904 to 1905 when Russia decided to start invading Korea. And in Korea, there's been a dynasty for the past, let's say, it's for a very, very long time. We are talking before Christ, basically, BCE. And this was the Joseon dynasty, Chosen with an E. It's so many different variations because they had no official affiliation with other governments, except for the Chinese, which was their main trading partner. Now, this was kind of key because when the Russians invaded Korea, China really stopped trading, which did not help the Chosun dynasty out, I guess, as you can call that. It actually was a lot more complicated. But really, the Russians invaded in Japan. I don't want to say greedy, but they were really hungry to expand because they were on an island and they didn't have much farming land. There's a lot of mountains, a lot of volcanoes there, so they really wanted to expand. And Japan decided to help Korea out. So they put troops there, They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it as a favor, but really they left the troops there, and they really pressured the last prince to give up power, and this is around 1908. The war ended, Russia lost, and Russia just retreated. It really wasn't much of a treaty or anything, just Russia lost and they retreated. So, Japan is like, well, we helped you out, we need your land, blah, 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 and the Chosen Dynasty is like, no way, but the troops are already in their land, so it's kind of really hard to argue out of that one. But in 1908 to 1909, the king of the Chosen Dynasty sent word to the Paris conference that was happening around the time, to urge nations to help so Japan would stop bullying them, but no one really listened, and the king was assassinated a couple minutes after the conference actually ended, and then the prince, who took over in 1910, signed the Treaty of Annexation to Japan, pardon me, and then Korea became a colony, or I guess you call it colonization of Japan. And Japan did a lot of significant changes. One, they tore out the whole entire Chosen Dynasty, all of its cultural references, everything. We don't know as much as we would have known about the Chosen Dynasty if Japan wasn't around. So, Japan beefed up the police force, made it extremely strict, basically almost declaring martial law, which means that soldiers can shoot if they want to and think it's okay. And it's like legally okay. That it is not in the U.S. saying soldiers have to have a reason to shoot. Police officers do, just for context. Moving back to Korea, all the schooling systems in Korea were immediately changed so that they only taught in Japanese, because Japanese, as I said in my video, wanted to purify the Koreans, and the Japanese did a lot of other weird stuff like kill cats. They thought they were used for sacrifices for the ancient culture. They really weren't. They were just pets, really. There was a couple cases of it, but not we're gonna go sacrifice a cat on a regular basis. No, it was never that serious. And Japan, they did a lot of significant changes. They really didn't mess with the Korean economy. It wasn't that great. They boosted up farming, which would be really important later. And the schooling was a lot tougher. There's a lot more orphans. A lot of Korean adults who did not agree or did something against the Japanese rule were executed or jailed, that too. And also, any landowner had to report the size area everyone was on their land to the Japanese government. This was in Korea, by the way. And this was really bad because if there's something good, like if there's water, that means that you can grow rice there, you can be a farm. The land was taken away from you by the Japanese government and given very cheaply to Japanese citizens who bought it and basically farmed your land. So yeah, you basically get everything stolen away from you. And schooling was really enforced. There was a lot of schools. Not as many as there's basically the same as the Chosen Dynasty, but it was really strict. Like, teachers carried swords to show their superiority. And they were also appointed by the Governor General, who was the leader of Korea. And that was really big, I guess. And then moving on to probably the first time protests popped up. It was around 1919, I guess. Between the 1910 and 1919. So a lot of basically what was happening was being set up through laws. But now in 1919, the Koreans are really unhappy. They thought, Japan was new, they would change those laws. No, Japan was really settled on those laws. They kind of liked it because it gave them complete control. And so the students decided they're not going to go to school today to disrespect all of their Japanese teachers who carried around the swords. And instead, they decided to go to the subway station and stream out and march across the city and win victory. It didn't really happen that way. What really happened was they streamed out of the subway system, started marching, and about halfway, they were caught by police. A lot of police. I mean, it looked like an army of police. Because 40,000 of those protesters were arrested and jailed. And then about 7,500 of them were killed. That's really sad, but it's what happened. And so, definitely got the Japan government attention. And so they passed some laws, giving them some freedom of press, and making the police force having less rights. They kind of got away with the martial law. And then we fast forward, nothing happened. 1920s, it was really just economic downfall. There wasn't really anything happening. It was really just static. Nothing really happened. Not even the protests were secretly happening. Some guerrilla warfare starting to appear. But we come to 1930. 1930 is when the Depression started hitting America. And Japan, 50% of its export and imports come from America. The United States, not just, you get it. And all these exports and imports really weakened loss of them really weakened the Japanese economy. So, Japan wanted to strengthen and get its economy back, so they built up infrastructure in Korea, and they moved housing. They made mud houses because those are really easy to make and cheaply for Koreans to move in to farm or work in factories. And 50% of Koreans' rice exports were to Japan to gear up for the war, because Japan knew at the time that they're gonna go to war. Now we're gonna go to 1941. I didn't even talk about this in my video, but I didn't see it as really important on that time. Is that Korea was really heavily relied on by Japan for food, for soldiers, and basically everything. It was a big naval base for Japan. And now we can go into 1945, when the USSR and the United States both claimed rights over Korea since Japan lost the war. And they signed a bunch of treaties that really didn't mean anything, and the USSR kind of helped the invasion or surprise attack on the US's territory below the 38th parallel, and it went all downhill from there. Now we got North and South Korea, and that's basically what happened in a nutshell.